Can an act of God, a private citizen, and federal and state governments work together to turn a disaster into something widely acclaimed and celebrated? I find it hard to believe as well, but here's the story. First, let's understand how a railroad's right-of-way works, or ROW. A railroad typically owns and operates a right-of-way, which is the corridor of land on which its railroad and railroad infrastructure sit. They may or may not own all the land outright. They may own some stretches of the land, but they are granted use of much of it through easements. Up until the mid-1980s, the MKT Railroad owned and operated an ROW that stretched through the heart of Missouri. Much of it ran along the Missouri River, which was convenient in some ways, but it was inconvenient in another important way: flooding. The MKT already had to repair their railbed numerous times coming into 1986, but in October 1986 there was an act of God, namely a particularly devastating flood that ruined their track from near Sedalia in the west to Mawkins, Missouri, near St. Louis, right at 200 miles of track. Since the MKT was already struggling financially, they decided that stretch of railroad was not worth repairing and they looked to abandon it. Normally, if an ROW is abandoned, the railroad can sell any stretch of land they own, but all the easements would revert back to the land. However, in 1983, the federal government added an amendment to the National Trails Act. The amendment allowed for something called rail banking. If a line was abandoned through the rail banking process, then the right-of-way would be preserved. That land couldn't be sold and the easements did not revert back to the landowners. And that's what happened to the MKT from Sedalia to Mawkins. MKT abandoned the line via the Rail Banking Act, thus preserving the right-of-way, technically allowing it to once again become a railroad line in the future if the need arose. This is where our private citizen enters the chat. In 1987, Ted Jones Jr., son of Edward D. Jones Sr., founder of the Edward D. Jones investment firm, and his wife Pat donated $2.2 million for the purpose of acquiring the MKT ROW from Mawkins to Sedalia. $200,000 went to the purchase of the actual ROW, and $2 million went to the state of Missouri to convert the damaged line into a recreational trail. In 1990, just 5 miles of the envisioned trail opened for public use near Rocheport, Missouri. Over the years, several other stretches of trail have opened, including 33 miles from Sedalia to Clinton, Missouri, that Union Pacific donated to the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. That's how an act of God, an act of Congress, dedicated state employees, and a private citizen created the Katy Trail, the longest continuous rail trail in the United States. It stretches 240 miles from Clinton, Missouri to Mawkins, Missouri, and crosses farmland, verdant forest, through charming towns, Missouri wide country, and over the Missouri River and wide open plains. The trail is open to horseback riders, hikers, and cyclists. It's particularly popular with cyclists. Want to ride our trail? See the link below.